Hey everyone, welcome to this month's live stream. This is Color Theory, and today we are working on swatching the color blue. And I've been really eager to do this. As we've worked through the previous three colors, I've kind of been working you towards an end goal. And that end goal is, well, first we rely on the color wheel to do a lot of the thinking for us. And in the first three lessons, we went straight across the wheel. But I don't know if you're aware of it, when you're looking at the blue part of the wheel, we've got some interesting things going on now. And so we can't use the wheel like a crutch. Once again, we are working on that color theory, and this month we're talking about blue. Blue is such a, it's a happy color, and a lot of people consider it their favorite color. You know, it's one of those colors that doesn't offend anybody. We use it a lot in home furnishings and in fashion. It's an easy color to work with. And then when you get into markers, blue ink just blends like a dream. So it's every beginner's ideal color to start with. It's not a scary color. We like it. And then the ink just blends wonderfully. So when we get into blue inks, they're easy to blend with. Love working with them. I love teaching beginners with them because blue just, it wants to blend. It's like, you know, you put it down on the paper and it's just so eager to do it. And then the other benefit of blue, and you'll see this both in Copics and in colored pencils, is that when you buy a set of almost any art supply, there's a ton of blue colors to choose from. And unlike some of the other colors, blues tend to work with other blues. So it's not often that you find a blue that totally clashes with another blue. So it's easy to make blending combinations. But it gets harder, it's deceptively hard when we go to shade blue. And so that's why we're tackling blue today. It's the first of our, let's call them curious colors. They don't behave the way that we want them to. Before we get too deep into the color theory, I need to remind you that we are working with a new kit. Our last kit was the spring 2023, and that one had a daffodil on the cover. This one has the rose on the cover. And these are 3 new lessons. So we had to start over with a totally new kit. So what's in that kit? Well, I have the worksheets, and we'll be working with the Forget-Me-Not Blue worksheet today. And then also in the kit is the digital stamps that we'll be working with. We'll be coloring the Forget-Me-Nots next week. And then in July, we're coloring a purple iris. And then in August, we'll be finishing with a rosebud. And all 3 digital stamps are in the kit. And then just because I'm making sure to cover my bases, that color wheel is also in the kit. So if you didn't get the spring 2023 kit, you'll get the color wheel. This one right here is also, I'm just going to put that in every kit that I issue. All right. The photo reference that we're working today, these are Forget-Me-Not flowers, and this photo is available for free on Pixabay. The link is down in the description, and I highly encourage you to head over to Pixabay and download this photo so that you can bring it up on a digital device so that you can look at that color up close and personal. Because what you are seeing on the screen from my broadcast isn't quite exactly the same as what you're going to have in a download. Now, you might take that one step further and say, hey, I want to print out that photo. Well, that only works if you have a good printer. So I think it's just safest to put it on a digital device. Save the paper, save the ink. You don't have to print that out. You're already printing one out for the worksheet where you're going to sample those colors. But the truest color you're going to get just from downloading the photo directly from Pixabay. That's pixabay.com. Link is down in the description directly to the photo. And then keep that on a digital device. So let me open up my iPad here. So remember, the color is going to be kind of skewed because we are looking at a digital device on a camera on a digital device. So that's 3 times removed from the original photograph. So what you're seeing on the screen there is a little weird. But the very first thing that I do when selecting colors, always, is to take a color tour, because colors are not always what you expect them to be. Now, I asked the question on Facebook earlier this week, what colors would you use to color this image? And a lot of people had the same exact instinct that honestly I have too. When I'm looking at something like this, my mind immediately goes to, well, I call it the color periwinkle. And periwinkle is B66, basically. I know there's another marker, I think, that's actually called periwinkle, but I'm not always thrilled with the way that Copic names their colors. To me, periwinkle is that blue color that it has hints of violet to it. So when you show it to someone, when you show it to like a group of 10 people, half of them will say that's blue and half of them will say it's purple because it's just kind of in between there. Is it blue? Is it violet? Not really sure. Periwinkle is that color in between. So when I look at a photo like this, that's where my mind goes. And that's actually where what a lot of people said was they saw B66 in that as well. I should have ran a poll just to see how many people would choose that color. But yeah. And I'm not saying that it's going to be an abject failure if you color with this image next week with B66 and maybe B63. We'll sample it today just to see, but my instincts are not always correct. Your instincts are not always correct. And when I start taking that color tour, I stopped right here and I just kind of like went, because that's not what I expected to see. What I'm seeing right there, and let me zoom out, it's this right here. It's not even a flower that's in our digital stamp, so we won't be coloring this one, but it's still part of the color that's affecting the scene. And when I got to that spot right there, that does not look like B66 to me. That's a true blue, kind of like an ultramarine kind of blue, maybe a phthalo. Yeah, it's phthalo. That's, if I was choosing paint, that to me is phthalo blue. So that could be like a B29. It could be, oh, I don't know. We could swatch those out, but that does not look like B66. It doesn't look like B69. That is a true blue. There is nothing violet going on in that edge there. And I did not expect to see that. So when I look at the whole picture, I'm thinking B66, but then I start looking in those areas of shade and shadow, and I'm not seeing that periwinkle color there. I'm seeing more of a true blue. Look at this little bit of a cast shadow. So each one of, let me explain what's going on here. Each one of these petals here. So this is a single petal on a forget-me-not flower. And each one has this little white bump up there. It's almost like a curl in the leaf or in the petal. So every single one of these petals on the left-hand side has a bump up. So that's giving you that little star-shaped thing. And those bumps are white. Those bumps are raised, and so they're casting a bit of shadow. That's called a cast shadow. And each one of those little bump ups is casting a shadow onto the petal below it. So here's one, and here's that little bump up, and then there's the cast shadow. And when I look at that cast shadow, doesn't look purplish blue to me. That looks bright, shocking cobalt kind of blue. So that influences the colors that I'm going to choose today. We'll test B66 because I think that might be a safe bet. But my fear is that by going with that first impression, I'm missing that beautiful blue. And then maybe these end up looking like violets when we're done. I know it's the wrong shape for violets, but maybe they look too purple if I'm using that B66. So I think I'm going to shoot for something that's a little bit more blue. And that was not my first instinct. And that's the whole reason why I take these color tours. Because yeah, if I look at that, I can talk myself into that being B66. But then the more I tour around, just with an open mind and no preconceived notions, I'm seeing blue petals. And here's just a really nice one right here, a couple of them. I'm seeing a very blue petal with an interesting purple zone in it, which is not really what I expected in the beginning. So these color tours can change your first impression. They can alter your plans. And it's just really important to kind of get an overview and double check your assumptions before you do too much with it. All right. Hopefully the camera doesn't cut off on me. All right, so let's talk about the swatching process. Now remember, the cardinal rule for swatching these Copic markers is we always swatch on the same paper as the project. So it does you no good to test swatch on cheap dime store paper or office supply paper, which is my instinct. I mean, if I can get away with using Staples cardstock, I would, because it's a lot cheaper. It feels so wasteful to get your expensive paper and then swatch on it. But the results on paper are different from paper to paper. So if you're swatching on one brand of paper where it just blends beautifully, and then you do your final project on something that is more of a stubborn blender, your colors could look different. Your blends might not look as good. And you're like, but wait a minute, I swatched it all out. It must be me. I'm a failure. Because we always blame ourselves. If you swatch on the same kind of paper, it just lessens the tragedies that are about to happen when you start using something else. So what am I using today? Here's I cut it down and I always mark it on the back bottom right corner. So this is Strathmore 300, the Bristol. And I always use the smooth finish. If I'm doing marker, it's on smooth or hot press paper. You want something that is just as silky smooth as possible. The markers really like that. And I like Bristol because there is... it's pretty good for the markers, but it also accepts a good amount of colored pencil. If you're a beginner, please try the Express It blending card. I highly recommend Express It for beginners because Express It is one of the few papers that is self-blending. So when you're a beginner, you're worried about 92 things, including blending. So it's always good to have somebody give you a little hand and a little bit of help, and that Express It wants to blend. And so it'll blend while you're not even watching. As long as you get enough ink down, the Express It wants to blend for you. So that's why I really do think it's worth spending a little bit more for good beginner paper. All right, so I'm working on that Strathmore 300. Next week, I'll be printing my digital stamp on Strathmore 300 as well. Here's that photo reference, and let's just get to swatching. So that first instinct that we all had, let's go ahead and I pulled out 66 and 63. So here's the 66, here's the 63. And I just kind of move it over there and compare. And what I'm seeing is the 66. I mean, this will work. It's just a little bit more purpley than the color that I'm seeing there on the edge. And I deliberately cut that photo right there on the edge of that petal so that we could get a good sample of the two different blues. And these markers just feel a little bit too purple. Is the world going to crash if you use these two? No, I love these colors. I use them all the time, but I think we can do better. All right, so there's that 66 and the 63. I know I'm going to make a mess with my markers here today, just testing everything. Let's pull out the 90s and we'll just go from the top down, trying to find something. So this is 95. It felt like the 66 was like the right value for the darker area. Not the darkest area, but the darker area. And the 3 is a little bit dark, but let's see what we can get. So the 90s are more of like a grayed blue, a worn blue, I guess we could say. Nope, definitely too much gray in there. So this was B93 and this one was B95. And I'm going to put an X through both of those because those they're very somber blues. I'm sure they'll work for other projects, but not for this one. So these two are still a potential. Hopefully I can find something better. Those are definitely eliminated. So getting rid of those 90s. 50s, I only have one. I don't want to mess around with a weird blending combination that hops all over the place. We got a lot to worry about this week. I'm going to turn up my light just a little bit on the desk there. All right, so I pulled out 40s. I've got 45 and 41 here. So here's the 45. Oh, that almost feels like it should be in the 90 family. That's a grade blue as well. The 41 is interesting. I use that a lot, but I very rarely use it with the 45. Nope, those just feel too grayed down. All right, the 30s are next, and the 30s are kind of bright. Those are playful blues. This has some potential. So this is 34. And there's that playfulness. That's the 32. They're definitely bluer. The 32 has a little bit of glow to it, but I don't like that. I think we can do better, but I'm running out of blues here. And by the way, all of the color theory that we're doing here today, once we start mixing the colors, it works. Oop, that's a 4. This works for the BGs, and the concepts that we're using today are going to work with the BGs and the BVs. So we're kind of covering 3 groups in one here, even though we're not going to work with BGs or the BVs, but everything that we're doing today will work for them. All right, so let's try the 20s. And the 20s is a really big family. I'm going to grab the 21 and the 23 to test. We'll get the lighter end of that family. Okay, so here's the 21. And then here is the 23. We're just throwing so many markers down here today that I want to make sure that I label them. These are bluer, but I like that the 21 there. It's not the same. It's not an exact match. Do I like it better than that? I'm just afraid that if I use those B60s, it's going to go too violet on me. So that 21 is an option. Okay, I'm leaving the 20s out. You know, I can't keep saying we'll find something better if we don't find something better. Let's try the 12 and the 14. So this is 12. Oh, this is more of that cyan color. And it's going to feel very green next to some of these other ones. It's a balanced blue, but it just definitely sits closer on the wheel. No, that is so wrong. Absolutely not. Wow, that almost looks aqua. So that's a big elimination there. Running out of numbers here, folks. Let's try B02, B04, and these usually have a glow to them, so I can pretty much guarantee, and those feel aqua too. Oh, yeah, that one almost matches my shirt. B02. That's a big, 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 big no. All right, so those are our B families. So it really is between the 60s and the B. It's between these guys here, the B66 and B63, and I really think that these could work. This is a no, this is a no, this is a no, this is a no. The 34... See, I like the 32, but the 34 has too much gray in it. So I know I can't build a blending combination off of that one. And as I said, I'm worried about this turning too violet. So just my instinct says to work with these two. Just my gut. You're going to have to trust me on this one. I can make it work. We can make both of them work, but something's telling me to go with the 20s. And because we've got a lot to worry about, I'm going to just do a natural blending combination. So a natural blending combination is all of the markers start with the same letter and the same first number. So we're looking for all of those B2s. So I'm just going to pull them all out. Well, honestly, I know I'm not going to use the 28 or 29, so I'm just pulling out the 26 and the 24. And let's just sample that whole family. All right, so here's 26. Here's 24. And then here's that 23. And there's a problem with the Copic numbering system with the 23, 24. Just so that you're aware of that. They're not super accurate when they number those colors. There's not a full value difference between those two. 24, 23, but they work in combination with each other. They're just pretty close. All right, so let me just put those over there. I know it doesn't match there on camera, but that's just what my gut says to go with. And I don't think we need the 26 because we're going to put a base coat underneath it. So I think I'm just going to grab the 24, 23, 21. I think that's what I'm going to work with. If you have strong feelings otherwise, you're welcome to try other combinations. You don't have to use what I'm using. I'm just trying to give you a peek at my thought process and the experience and the things that run through my head that I draw from when I'm choosing colors. Okay, so we've got our combination there. That's what I think I'm going to use. And I know they blend well, but let's just give it a run here. Natural combinations always blend really well with each other. They're born to blend because they're all three the same ink with just different amounts of solvent in it. So yeah, that's going to blend beautifully for us. Not trying to do my best blends today. Remember, this is not a blending lesson. This is about choosing colors and choosing the shady colors that go down underneath. Yeah, I got that low battery thing that's still blinking on me, but my camera is not on a battery. It's actually on a cord. So not really sure why that's up there. It's driving me nuts though. I will have to investigate that after the stream. Okay, so looking for my color wheel here. Now, normally when we did yellow, let me get both of those on camera there. When we did yellow, we went from yellow to find the shade under paint. We went directly across the wheel and we found violet. And then when we did green, we went directly across and we found pink and we underpainted the green leaves with a bit of pink. And then we did the reverse. We underpainted pink with, I think we did a little bit of green. I'm blanking out there. I think we underpainted with that. We had some violet under there too, though. But normally you can just go directly across the wheel. And this works for paint all the time. And this is actually where I learned the method, is when you're wanting to neutralize a color like green, you think across the wheel, you grab some pink. So you've got some green paint on your palette, you got some pink paint on the palette, and you can mix those. And you will come up with a neutralized kind of gray color. But Copics are different because what we're doing with Copics is we're not mixing them on a palette. You're never mixing color with Copic. You're layering colors. And so that's a slightly different process. The color theory works. The problem is the ink doesn't work. What's going to happen is we're taking that blue and we go directly across, and we're finding that we should be shopping in the warm red color. Or you can even go into the orange. The complement of blue tends to be that orangey red color. The problem is that the staining ink. And watch what happens when I'm going to be testing with the B24 to find an underpaint for this. When I start working with the orange colors underneath, so let's try YR04 underneath B24 and watch what happens. So there's that orange, and this would totally work if we were mixing orange paint with blue paint on a painter's palette. But when we do it with markers, because the orange hits the paper first, it soaks into the paper fiber, it has a red content to it. Red is stubborn, it stains those paper fibers, and that is always going to look like a weird color of orange sitting underneath the blue. It just doesn't blend out well. You can give it 82 coats, but it's still always going to stick out like a sore thumb. I could try and put the blue down first so that the paper isn't totally absorbing all the orange first, and then give it another coat. But before you know it, you are layering 18 coats. Now, right now, it doesn't really show up on camera as much, but right now here in person, it looks like an orange marker with blue over the top of it. And I'm never going to be able to get rid of that look because we are surface layering rather than actually mixing these two inks. I could make a beautifully desaturated blue marker if I took one of those blank markers and I filled it with half B24 and half YR04. It would make a lovely color that wouldn't look like blue or orange. It would look like a neutralized grayish color. But it just doesn't work when you're doing it on paper. You're dealing with paper fibers, you're dealing with stubborn inks. These two just don't work. But as proof that it does work, Payne's Gray is a color that I love to use in watercolor. It's just a beautiful bluish gray. And what Payne's Gray is it's a color that is like a burnt sienna type color with blue. And it's those two mixed together. It works in watercolor. It doesn't work in Copic. It's just, ugh. And it drives me nuts because every time I go to shade something blue, I end up with these weird combinations and stumbling around and fumbling around trying to find the proper underpaint for it. All right, so tip number one when we're working with this blue ink. In general, blue, violet, and gray colors, those are always safe colors to put underneath your main color as shade. So if you're working with something that's green, you could put blue underneath it. You could put violet underneath it, or you could put gray underneath it. If you're working with orange, you can put blue underneath it. You can put violet. It's just, they're almost universal. And I've got like a little asterisk right there because, I mean, your results may vary just depending on what you're using. But in general, when the complement doesn't work, when the wheel fails you, you can go back to the tried and true shade colors because shade is always a little bit cool. And it happens all the time in painting where you just want to tone something down and cool it off. You add a little blue, or you add a little violet, or you can add a little gray to it. Those are safe shading colors. Well, the problem is we're working with blue. You can't shade blue with more blue. It just doesn't work. So that it limits your ability to find those other potential colors. And then the other thing is that grays. So let me pull out some grays. Neutral grays and grays. They're based on black, and you just take a black ink and you keep adding solvent in it to make N10, to make N9, add a little more solvent and makes N8, but they're all based on black. Black-based grays, they make the image look really heavy. They add weight, and I think it's important to understand that it's not just weight that's a physical weight, like they make the flower look heavy, but they also dampen it down kind of emotionally. They make the color dingy and dirty and slightly unpleasant. So I almost never shade with gray underneath blue because it just makes a leaden heavy color. So let me grab N4 and show you what that looks like underneath the blue. Now, if we were doing like a blue car or a blue gumball, I wouldn't have any problem. This is N4 underneath B24. I think that looks perfectly appropriate, that color right there. It would work for a car. but does it work for a happy, beautiful flower that's sitting in the sunshine? That is something that you want to put on a decorative card or something chipper and happy on somebody's bedroom wall? Not really. The gray feels inappropriate to me for flowers. The gray works. It's almost universal. You can always use it. It just makes for somber, almost funeral type flowers. It just kind of kills the happiness. It's like a damper on things. They're the party pooper. They work. Grays work, but they're just kind of, yeah. And the cool grays are not much better. They have some blue to them, so it's not going to be quite as somber, but still, it's still gray. So this was C4 underneath B24. And you're looking at that color right there. The C, I would prefer that over the N, but still, ugh. All right, so we're running out of options here. We don't want to use the grays because it's a flower. We want it to look happy and sunshine filled. So the only other thing that we've got left to work with is purple. So we've got that violet. Remember those three universal colors are blue. We don't want to put blue under blue. Violet is the second one, and then gray is the other universal one. So now we're kind of shopping in the purple zone. And if you've taken one of my classes that uses blue, chances are we were underpainting with violet. So one of the colors that I tend to work with, it might be a little bit strong here, is I like V15. And I like the way that looks underneath blue. Oop. Not used to having my face out there in the way. All right, so we're looking at that color right here. That's actually a gorgeous color. And you know what? Whoa, that kind of looks like, it's not an exact match on camera there, but that looks pretty close to the darker shade color there. So this is B24. All right, I'm holding that V15 out. I like that one. All right, gotta get my gray markers out of the way. Putting those over there with the orange markers because those are big no's. Okay, in the violet family, let's go ahead and try V04. So V15 worked. I'm not bummed out by that one, but let's just shop around and see if we can find anything. Ooh, that's the color. That's it right there. Whoa, that just has it. The V04 has some glow to it. And that's the difference. The V15 is just a little bit more milder of a color. Oh, I like that one. I like that better than the V15. So this one was V04 under B24. All right. Both of them work. You could use either one, but I really like this just feels happy and sunshiny. Wow, that is a gorgeous color. I wish they made that actually in a marker. That would be awesome. Let's try V25. V25, the 20s feel a little grayed down to me. Yeah, see how murky of a violet that is? To me, that's going to work just like a gray. Yeah, I don't like that. So this was a V25. And I do not like that one. Nope, too somber. We want happy flowers. And then the violet family starts getting funky. There's like this big gap between the 20s and then the 90s. And the 90s are all super wimpy. And then they're this weird kind of mauve kind of tone. Yeah, that's a big no too. All right, so I think the two best colors to use would be V15 or V04. I really like that 04 though, so I think that's what I'm going to be using. But we also have a kicker on this flower. There's an unexpected twist there down at the end of the petal. So when we get that petal, we get that petal shape. and they each have that little side blip on there. There is, whoop, smudging the marker. There's kind of a pinkish cast right there. And I think I want to blend that into my blending combination. If the VO4, I really like that VO4. I wish they had a VO2 because I know that the violet 01 is going to be too light. All right, what is my lightest color in that combination? The 21. So let's see what VO1 does underneath the 21. I just don't think it's going to be strong enough. No, you can't even see it. Oh, that's under the 23. I need to check it under the 21. All right, so there's that VO1 again. And let's see what it looks like under B21, which is the lightest color in our combination. You can see it, but if I blend over it, does that look as strong? No, it's kind of disappearing. It's there on the first coat, but it's not there on the second coat, and it's not going to give us that cheerful hit of pink. All right, so V01 is too wimpy. I need something that ends in a 2. Well, there's V12 and then there's V22. So let me pull both of those. So this was V01. And I don't like that one. So V22. Oh, that doesn't look pink at all. I'm not even going to test that because it's just not, it's not the range that we want. V12. Let's see what that looks like. That has that pinkish purple look to it. And it ends in a 2. Oh, there we go. That, I think, is the color that we want. Yep, see? There's that match for the kiss on the end of that petal. All right, so let me clear off my desk here. V12, moving the V22 away. You can use the V15 if you want, but I'm going to use the V04, B24, B23, B21, and then the V12. And I think that's going to be my blending combination, but let's go ahead and test it just to be sure. So let's put that V04 down first. And here's the 24 over the top of it. Man, I love that color that it makes. That is gorgeous. Have I ever used that combination before? I don't think so. Wow. I like that. This is not going to be the world's best blend. I'm just looking to make sure that the colors feel like they're related. And then kicking in a little bit of that V12 from the end. And let's hit it one more time with that blue. And let's see how that looks. I like it. It's not an exact match, but I think it's got the flavor that I want. I'm getting that hit of purple with the VO4 underneath the blue there. And then I've got true blues here. And then with that pink kick at the end. Yeah, I think I like that. All right, so this is my final blending combination. VO4, B24, B23, B21, and then V12 down at the very end of it. And that's what I will be using next week. Now, let me go shopping for some colored pencils to go with this. Oh, I'm almost out of room. I took up a lot of space today. All right, so getting out my Prismacolor kit here. And let's look for a violet. Let's just actually look for violet pencil. Yeah. 9. Barely read it on camera there. 932. All right. I think that's going to be, it's going to feel like it matches this end right there. Those two colors they feel related. I like that. All right, so, and I've been using Prismacolors for so many years that I can usually just grab the colors that, like, I have in my mind the color that I want, and then I can reach for the appropriate pencil. I don't have to putz around and look and swatch them all. I just know them really well at this point, but there's no shame in sitting down and swatching them out if you don't know them as well as I do. All right, so let me look for, I want something that's kind of in this range, but I don't normally use like a blue over a blue, but if I had something that was grayish, I don't think that the slate is going to work. I'm going to put that over here. No, that's too gray. So that was a little swatch of the slate. Always has like a little bit of green to it, but they do have some grayed blues. So here's one. And here's another. Let's try both of these. All right, so what do I have here? I've got Blue Violet Lake and Periwinkle. Let me try both of these. So here's the Periwinkle. And there's the Blue Violet Lake. I like the Blue Violet Lake. Here's Periwinkle. It looks a little more gray. The Blue Violet Lake. So that's what I think I want. Do I want the Periwinkle? Put that up there. No, I don't like the Periwinkle. All right, so Blue Violet Lake is number 1079. 1079. And then let's do a pop of this kind of purple on the end, something that can strengthen that. Okay, and here's where I'm going to get into trouble because this is the color. It is 934 Lavender, which is a color that has been, lavender has been discontinued. The two replacements are Orchid. They discontinued two of them. They discontinued Lavender and Lilac, and one is Orchid and maybe one is Iris, and they're like in the 1100s. I will put that on the resource page what the other one is. The thing is that I have about 20 lavender pencils sitting here that I just accidentally rebought some. This happened like 5 years ago, and I don't use the color very often, but I ended up with 2 full boxes of 12 each. So I am like set for lavender pencils for a lifetime. So I won't be buying the replacement. I think it's called Orchid, but whatever that color is, I will put that in the resource page. But yeah, see how we've got this color right here, but if I want to amplify it a bit and really make it look pinkish down on the end, wow, that's gorgeous. And the replacement, whether it's Orchid or Iris or whatever that color is, that will work too, because they're almost the same color. It's just they use a slightly different pigment formula. So this is 934, but there's another number, and they both start with 11, and then there's like 2 other numbers there that I don't know. But this would be the replacement for that one. And I'll put that in the resource page as well. So I like these 3 pencils. Okay, now, if we start playing around with neutralizing colors, because the problem with shading blue with violet is that the color never gets very murky. So I need something that's over on the warmer half of the spectrum, on the warmer half of the color wheel, to add some murkiness. And I think I want to use green, because there's going to be some green in the image anyway, because there's a couple of buds. So let me just pull out Prussian green. And the way that I want to test this is I give myself some of that color, and then I want to make sure that there's like a transparency to whatever green that I pick. See, look at that murky color that it's making. It's not really purple. It's not really green. Yeah. So I'm also going to be using Prussian green right here, because I want this color that it makes. I'm not using green because it's green. I'm using green because I'm neutralizing that color. Another little bit of color theory. When you start mixing, if you mix two direct complements, you can get that neutral gray, and those direct complements are directly across. But then if you can't do those directly across, you can start hopping and do like a triad, and those three kind of cancel each other out. So my cancellation, the murkiness, is this combination here. So I'm going to do a little blue, a little bit of pinkish purple, and some of the green, and that's going to make kind of a murky gray if I need it. For where one petal overlaps another, there's going to be some murkiness right along the side there on the bottom one, and so I'll use green for that. Knowing that it's an Amy project, you can pretty much guarantee that we'll pull out the grade lavender at some point, 1026, and then I don't even put it in my kit anymore. It's just the white, and we'll pull that white one out. So I think these two are safe bets. I can't guarantee that I'm going to use either one of these, but you just pull them out for every project because I throw them in all the time anyway. So there's my pencils. So we've got that Prussian green, number 109. We've got that lavender, or whatever the replacement is, which I think is called Orchid, 934. Should have looked it up. Blue Violet Lake is 1079, and then Violet 932, and then we've got the grade lavender and the white, and I think that's going to be my working combo for the Forget-Me-Nots next week. So we will be coloring, let me pull those up one more time, the digi there. We'll be coloring the one that's down in the bottom right-hand corner. They're little tiny blue flowers that are fun to color. And we'll be working with this 26, 24, 23, 21 combination. Probably not the 26 because I like this one so much. So I never did write that down fully. We get that V04 and the V12. Off camera there, sorry. V12. Like it. Yeah. That's a little dark, but I like the combination of the V04 under the 24. Yeah, I'm geeked about this. Okay. So, I'm curious. Let me know in the comments if you're going to be going with the B66 version. Maybe even let me know over on the Facebook group, because then we can kind of watch and see who's doing which combination and which one turns out more lifelike and more to your liking. But you can still, even if you're using the B66 set, you could still use these same exact pencils. They're going to work for both. And if you're looking for 3, that's the problem. B66, B63. The B60 is a lot lighter than this B21. So I'm not sure what you would be using as your third one. Maybe you go 66, 63, 21. That's a possibility. I like that. All right, so let's see if there's anyone that wants to ask a live question while we're here. I can hang on for a little bit more, but that's pretty much, I got the colors picked out. So that's my general plan for next week. I will hold on for just a bit longer to see if there's anyone that has any questions. Everybody always falls silent when I start talking. I think it's because I throw so much information at you. Hopefully everybody understood the swatching process that we went through. I mean, we've done this with 3 other projects now. But wow, every time I look at that section up there, that just makes me smile. I like that. The V04 underneath the B24, that is unexpectedly bright and beautiful. And I really like that. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions, but normally during a Q&A, we can ask questions and I don't have a problem answering. So, all right. So if there aren't any more questions in the next couple of seconds, then I will sign off and let y'all get to start to coloring on the Forget-Me-Nots. You can probably try one ahead of time and then wait and try one with me as we color live next Friday. Or it's actually recorded, but we'll premiere it. And I'll hang around in the comments on that video as well to answer questions for you. But if you have the digital stamp there, you might as well get started once you get some of those colors picked out. I would love to see some of your color swatching samples too, which you can post those over in the Facebook group. And we'll see what kind of tests that you get. All right, so that's it for today. I will see you all this time next Friday with the Forget Me Not coloring process. All right, have a great day, everybody. Happy coloring.